I understand that Tuesday, December the 1st, has been designated Giving Tuesday. I don't know where the idea originated, but I like it. I think it's a good one. Between now and then, you might think about where can you do some giving that would benefit others, whether you're giving to an organization, like I understand food banks are in desperate need for food this year because of so many people being unemployed. You might do some extra giving to your church, and I say your church because even though many of the people who watch these videos are from Winchester Community United Methodist, not everyone is. We have people in other parts of the country and people in other countries who watch these videos from time to time. So that's why I say you might think about giving to your church. Might think about giving to an individual, someone you know in need, or even just walk up to a homeless person and hand the person a bag of non-perishable food items. But Giving Tuesday, it's a good idea. It's something that is beneficial. And so think about that. Now, for those of us who are part of Winchester Community United Methodist Church, we're looking at the end of our year, which is also the end of our fiscal year. And due to a variety of reasons, we probably won't meet budget this year, which means we won't have income that will equal our original projected budget. What I think we will do, though, and it looks very likely, with a little extra giving, we will be able to meet all of our financial obligations. We just won't be doing some of the extra things that were in our budget that we hoped we'd be able to do. But with the right amount of giving between now and the end of the year, we'll be able to meet all of our financial obligations. So please pray on that. See if you want to give a little extra just to be part of that as well. And now on to Judges, which is our finale of Judges. It's our last message in the series. The following week, we'll start an Advent series. But Judges is above all a book about grace and undeserved mercy. As you read through Judges, you see it over and over. God's grace being poured out onto the people and God's mercy. Now, even though those terms are often used interchangeably, they really are different. I see them as different. Grace is the experience that we have with God when we've sinned or we've done something wrong and God shows us forgiveness. That's grace. Forgiveness for that which we've done wrong. Mercy is God showing his love for us when we didn't do what was right, when there was something that we recognized we needed to do and we chose not to. That's when we receive God's mercy because God knows our hearts. So in the book of Judges, we see, though, God pouring out both his grace and his mercy over and over on the people. Now, the position of judge is not something that was ever prescribed in the law of Moses. The idea of a judge goes back to Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. One day he was visiting Moses, and he was observing what Moses was doing, where Moses was sitting all day long, and the people were coming to him, asking for his input and his wisdom about a certain situation they were facing. And it was a long process. People waited all day for it. And remember, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. And Moses is the only judge. So Jethro asked him, why do you do this? And Moses explained, well, they need someone to help them decide what they're going to do in their situation. So Jethro recommended that Moses choose other leaders who could help with the situation. People who would oversee maybe 50 folks or 1,000 folks. And they would handle the easy things. And then the really serious, important cases would be brought to Moses. That way it spreads it out. People aren't waiting all day long just for an audience with Moses. And so it was a very practical thing. It was a good thing. Now, after the time of Moses, after the time of Joshua, then what we find are these judges who are leading Israel in a variety of ways. But that's its origin, back from Jethro and his wisdom. In this series, we've looked at Othniel, who was the first judge. And he not only judged the people, but he led them in battle, freed them, from oppression. Then we looked at Ehud, who again freed the people, this time from the Moabites. Then Deborah, who was a prophet and a judge. And then with Barak, she also led the nation in victory over their oppressors, who were Canaan. Then Gideon, who led the nation in a very unconventional way against the Midianites. And then finally Samson. We skipped over several judges between Gideon and Samson, but Samson was who we looked at last week. That's quite a lineup of judges, each unique and different from the others. Well, one of the repeated phrases in Judges is this: in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit. And the remainder of the book describes just what that means. And I urge you to read it. We're not going to go through it today, but I urge you to go ahead and read the remainder of the book. But I warn you, there are sections that are very difficult to read because of some of the lewd acts in which people are participating. But they're there to give you an idea of what the author meant in writing, everyone did as he saw fit. And many times it was not a good thing. The people did not make good decisions. In fact, one of the sections you'll read is a section where the nation actually had a civil war. And they were in battle once again, but they were in battle against each other. And thousands of Israelites died in what we'd call an intramural battle. And such a waste. But people were doing as they saw fit. Now, the author blames this corruption and division in Israel over not having a king to lead them. Well, originally, God never intended for Israel to have a king. But what they had the law of Moses. And if they had followed the law of Moses, that would have helped guide them away from some of this corruption that they got into. Now, you and I have something that the Israelites did not have then. We have, first of all, our own copies of the Bible. Even though they had the law of Moses, they didn't have their personal copies. They couldn't sit at home and read the law. That's one reason why the law tells them to memorize significant passages. Put them in your heart. Put them in your put them in your mind. Put them in your heart. I did have biology class. But so that it's written on your heart. You and I have access to Bibles. I don't know about you, but I own a couple of dozen copies of the Bible in various English translations, plus a Greek New Testament, a Hebrew Old Testament. And so I have access. You have access. And we can read the Bible and gain guidance from that over and over in our lives. And when we're faced with something, we can read the Bible to see, is there some wisdom there? We can go to a trusted leader or friend or pastor and ask, is there some guidance for me in that? And so we have something that they didn't have. We have something else too, though. It's something that comes with knowing Jesus. When you become a Christian, Jesus is in your life. Then you have a personal faith that guides you. You see, you don't become a Christian by living in the right country or being from the right ethnic background or the right race or the right gender. That doesn't do it. You come into the church once you receive Jesus. And that's different than the Israelites had. You see, they were Israelites, whether they believed in God or not. They were still Israelites. Whereas you're not a Christian if you don't believe in God. It's very simple. You're not a full-fledged member of the church if you don't believe in Jesus. Whereas they were full-fledged members of the nation of Israel, even if they didn't believe in God, even if they didn't follow God. Whereas you and I had this personal element to our faith And then when we join in with other Christians, we're part of the church. And that's a wonderful thing. And that's something that helps us. We have the Holy Spirit guiding us every day into what is right and what is good. Last Sunday, in the Sunday New York Times, there was a profile of TV personality Savannah Guthrie, one of the co-hosts of the Today Show on NBC. By the way, she'll also be co-hosting the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on Thursday. And yes, there will be a Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade of sorts. There's not going to be an actual parade, but the balloons are going to be there. And for me, that's the best part. So tune in Thursday morning, 9 o'clock, and you get to see the balloons. Savannah Guthrie will be there, as well as other NBC personalities and other performances and things like that as well. That's part of the Fisher family Thanksgiving morning. But I learned a couple of things about Savannah Guthrie. In 1999, she was already in TV news, but she quit her job to go to Georgetown Law School. She wanted to gain one more degree. While in law school, she was also doing freelance reporting on air for the local NBC station in that community. Her roommates got used to hearing her wake up at 4 a.m. every morning in order to study, but also to read her Bible. In 2002, she earned the highest score of all applicants taking the Arizona bar exam, and then she joined a law firm for a time. When offered a federal clerkship, which is something that many law students want, law school graduates want, she turned it down because she decided she was going to go back into television. And she did just that, eventually landing at the Today Show. I also learned she's very good friends with Jenna Bush Hager. In fact, they attend the same church. Their children have play dates, and Savannah Guthrie is godmother to Jenna's third child. About her Christian faith in this profile, she said, "It's probably one of the most exciting things to me. It's far more interesting to me than anything else." Now imagine that. Here's a woman who, in her TV career, she's had the opportunity to interview presidents, other world leaders, a lot of entertainers, a lot of very fascinating people. And yet, what does she find most fascinating? Her faith. I'm always so fundamentally aware of not being the center of the universe. Having a faith really helps you know your place in the world. And I value that. And I find it endlessly fascinating. Believing in God, loving God, believing in a compassionate God just absolutely spreads through everything I feel and the way I look at the world. With all of her accomplishments, she understands her faith as the central driving force of her life. And that's something that we see over and over in Judges that the people forget. That God loves them and they're God's people, and yet they turn away from God. You and I have the Bible to remind us not to. You and I have that personal element of our faith to remind us not to. Judges is, above all, a book about grace and undeserved mercy. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us." Who are the beloved? Go and be the beloved. And happy Thanksgiving.